Welcome to session 3AZ, or Z if you prefer. This is being given by Jens Buhering. Okay, he can tell you later, from Horizon. And the session title, is Risk-Free Ad Hoc Workload in Your IWSz-CP, current plan, I assume, by self-service. If you have any questions, if you can put them in the chat because you are muted, I will give you the opportunity to unmute at the end. But if you put your questions in the chat, I will let Joe know that they're there. And if need be, he'll pass them to the end. But if he can, he'll answer them as they come. To show your appreciation of our presenters all throughout the GSE conference, but especially for this one, please feel free to contribute to our charities this year, the Royal National Lifeboat Institute or the Guide Dogs for the Blind. And by donating generously, you will also give yourself entries to the raffle and those prizes. So your generosity could well be rewarded. Okay, so I shall now pass you over to Jens.
Thank you very much, Anna, for your introducing words. Yeah, hello to everybody. My name is Jens Buhering. I'm from Horizon, and I take care of all belongings to IT architects at customer sites, how our products could support you in the best way, how could we adapt our products to your existing IT operations world. Yeah, that's typically things I take care of. And Horizon is located here in Munich, and I'm also in the office of our Horizon main office here in Munich. So let's go ahead directly. Risk-free ad hoc workload. I think it's a great topic, and I would like to show you what's behind this title. So you can expect in this presentation four main aspects. Of course, first of all, I would like to explain what do we understand of ad hoc workload, and then I will explain it to you with customer case, how they solved their ad hoc workload and all the challenges they have by the Horizon software Procman, process manager. And then finally, I will give you a summary, some statistics, and at the far end, of course, you can ask any questions, and we can have a discussion on this topic. Okay, so let's go deep into the world of IWSz-CP. I mean, most of you are experts and you know exactly how it works, the workload automation engine from IBM. And one thing I want to mention, I just learned in the session ahead from Dean Harrison that now the official name is IZWS. So please excuse, I still use IWS. And for me, it's also no problem if somebody is talking about TWS or OPC. All that terms are fine for me. So what do I have in mind if I speak of ad hoc workload? I mean, just look here at the picture on the left-hand side. Here you can see three major data areas in that workload solution. We have the database, we have the long-term plan, and of course, we have the current plan where the workload is executed. So usually, the current plan is extended automatically for a certain period. That's nothing I want to mention right now here, or I want to give deeper explanations. But come to the point, what do we think is ad hoc workload? That is all the additional workload which is inserted to the current plan. And this might be done through ISPF dialogue by different user groups, which have the proper rights for it. Or it might also happen by a program, by the program interface, which is provided by IWS. So, and this, in all this presentation, if I talk about ad hoc workload, I mean exactly this kind of additional workload here on the right-hand side, adding a new occurrence to the current plan. So now that is clear what I mean by ad hoc workload. And let's go ahead. Why do we have additional, or why do we have ad hoc workload? I would say in all the large IT operation data centers I have worked, it happens every day in each data center. And the reasons may vary. I just listed some samples here. Maybe an application description has a wrong defined cycle definition, and based on that, it has to be added to the current plan. Or simply an application did not exist in the database while the current plan was extended, or it might be an interaction due to a severe error in the current plan. So you have to yes, add additional modification workload. Or that's also something that happens very often. We have requests from different user groups who address an additional job run managed by IWSz-CP. There might be lots of more reasons why ad hoc workload is necessary, but this is only a short overview of some major aspects. Okay, which conflicts do we see if I look at this ad hoc workload? And again, here only some samples. I mean, if you work in a data center, you may know much more challenges and conflicts in connection to the ad hoc workload. But one tricky thing is that you cannot always calculate or plan when will this ad hoc workload come up. So it's difficult for IT ops teams to handle it or to plan the stuff for this kind of work. And then what we very often see is that there might be a lag between the necessity of ad hoc workload and the availability of the operations staff team. So ad hoc workload has to be performed very often, very quickly. It has to be added very fast to the current plan. And so you are dependent on different user groups. And I think from what I have seen in the data centers, very often it is difficult to handle a request for this ad hoc workload because the information transport from the requester to the operations planner, who usually does the adding to the current plan, that there might be a lag in this info transport. And this may lead to severe problems in the current plan if, for example, external dependencies are wrong set, or if workstations are not set properly. So this may cause real headache in your current plan. So let's go now. This was just some background information. It's somehow an introduction. But now let's go to that customer case, which I want to present you here in this presentation. So let's go in detail. This is a customer case from a German federal bank. We have several federal banks here in Germany, and some of them have yes, IT service provider, which usually provide the network and also operations services, sometimes also application developer services. But here in this case, it's more ops services. So at this customer, IWSz-CP is of course in use. I think right now they are on 9.3. And the differentiation is at bank side, there we have the application developer, which I now call dev in this presentation. Sorry, I have to collapse a short window. So we have the application developer. They are coding COBOL and PL1, and they are about 500 developers at that bank. And then, of course, on IT service provider side, we have the operations team. They do all the deployment of job control to the production environment, and they also do take care about the IWSz-CP application description and also for the current plan in the production environment. So, but nevertheless, we have a close collaboration of these user groups, where usually the dev requests a change for job control or IWS, and then finally the ops team will fulfill this request. Okay, and now let's go deeper to ad hoc workload. Here at this customer case, we have more than 2,500 requests for the current plan each year. So that means almost more than 200 per month, and that's quite a lot, or that might be quite a lot for the ops team, because each ad hoc workload request may cost minutes or hours of working time for the ops team. Okay. Then I would like to give you a short overview about the different request types we have here for the current plan. So a very simple one, a developer contacts the ops team and says, hey, I need another job run in production. Please do it. And then this is somehow the first time. Or if the dev user is more experienced, he gives more information and says, hey, I want to add 2, 3, 4, 5 applications. And then he also describes the dependencies, external dependencies, and maybe he wants to change some settings inside the application description in the operation list or stuff like that. That is also a very typical case of ad hoc workload. And then finally, we have something, this is all very often driven by user from the business department. They are often far away from the IT, and they start a request and say, oh, I need a certain list, please print it or create it. And then I want to download it or print it on my site. But usually these users do not have any knowledge or very, very poor knowledge about workload automation, and here in this case about IWSz-CP. So this makes it challenging for the ops team to handle these different requests, because it's somehow you have to work like a detective and ask them exactly the right definitions, for the right application, for the right purpose. And yeah, that might be challenging. But finally, here at this customer, the ops team is preparing the request and then adds it manually to the current plan. Or simply said, for everybody of you who knows the ISPF dialog of IWS, it's 5.1. So that's the way how they handle these workload requests. Okay, so next thing. So what happened in the past is that this customer came to us and said, we need a new solution how to handle this ad hoc workload, because also the IT service provider is growing each year and ad hoc workload was growing each year, but they were not able to increase their ops staff. So they need a way how to handle this workload request and how to make it safe and fulfill it properly, and yeah, to still keep running your current plan well without interruption. So what this customer said, they asked for a software-based solution to handle all these requests. And very important here at this point is they were asking to fulfill the CP update by program and not by manual ops team interaction. Means in detail to replace an 5.1 action by any user. Okay, in addition, and that is, I deeply understand this wish because it happens very often in many different large data center. They want a standardized way how to request and how to organize these ad hoc workload requests. And they want to get rid of all these parallel ways that a dev user is phoning the ops team or sending an email with crude information or sending a fax or just visit your colleague next door and ask him to do something, to add something to the current plan. That should be impossible and would be avoided with a new solution. And because, as I mentioned before, you have the knowledge of all the involved user groups from business department, developer, and ops team. The knowledge is completely spread and different about workload automation. So the software solution must support these different knowledge types of user. They can work properly with the software, and it must be absolutely clear what to do and who is allowed to do what. And then, of course, we need a clear separation of activities and duties and access to certain resources that must be absolutely guaranteed. And last but not least, each ad hoc workload, each additional, each add to the current plan is critical because you modify, you change the existing current plan, and additional workload may cause severe problems if it's not done properly. And you need a possibility to reflect it and to audit who but more what was the request and how did it enter the current plan. And therefore you need a seamless audit proof option, a report or something like that to be sure and to fulfill all compliance rules. Okay, so and then of course there was a small application. It was used for many years at that bank environment. It was an in-house coded solution. Nobody knows anymore the code. Developer has gone many years ago. So it was a very high level of risk that something happens with that in-house coded and used solution. Okay, now just some background information. What is Procman? Because I mentioned already the federal bank and the IT service provider, they decided to implement and to use the Horizon solution Procman, the process manager. And here, what is it? What is the story about our Procman? It's definitely, it is well tailored for user groups from dev and ops. It brings them together in this field of JCL and workload automation object maintenance. And it's not only JCL, this includes also JCL-SysP and JCL procedures. And workload automation does not mean only IWS. We are also prepared to support, for example, Control M and stuff like that. So just if you follow that picture, what we always have in large data centers is somehow different environments or stages called very often development, test, and production. In these different stages, you have then job control and scheduler definitions, and these objects, must be transferred or parsed through the stages. Of course, the user groups involved in all these different actions are from business department, application developer, operations planner, but also operating teams, administrator, database administrator. So there's a large list of users who might be involved in JCL or workload automation maintenance. And exactly here, we are positioned with our Procman, because it brings all the user together in one software solution. And depending on their knowledge and their duties, they will get provided processes, we call it handover processes, to maintain job control and IWSz-CP objects here in this case. And if I speak of maintenance, then it's not only creating a new ticket where somebody describes what should be done. No, it's even more. With Procman, you really can edit, you can create job control, you can modify job control, you can check it, you can generate job control, and you can deploy all these different workload objects to each stage, which is connected in your environment. Sometimes you have 3 stages. We have still some large data center, which have only 1 stage, it's production, but we find also data center with those 5 or 6 different stages, from development, test 1, test 2, quality assurance, pre-production, and then finally production. Anyhow, as many you have, we support by Procman. And because adding an occurrence to the current plan is not really an object, but here in this case we handle it like an object in this case. So create ad hoc workload is also something you can manage with Procman. And one important thing is Procman, the GUI it's a browser-based solution, and therefore it's we have a wide open for different user groups to get in contact and to get to fulfill the maintenance of job control and IWS. It's not needed to log on to TSO. You can simply you can manage everything by the browser application. Okay, how does it look like in case somebody is running Procman? The heart of each Procman installation is the workflow manager. That means it organizes and manages all the traffic, all the user interaction, all the rights and roles which are in Procman installation is managed by the workflow manager. And then the next step, and that is very important, each Procman looks different at each customer, because all the workflows, all the work, the maintenance which can be done by Procman is organized in a different way at each customer site. And therefore we can customize handover processes exactly to your needs in your data center. And here we can provide a process for job control or IWS control M or many other workload objects which exist in your mainframe environment. The next thing is each handover process consists of several process activities, and that might be a structure like this. It's only a standard sample which is used very often. At the very beginning, you have a process activity for request, and this request is usually started by someone from the role developer or business department, and then you have an approve activity. There is job control or IWS can be deployed to a certain stage. That is sometimes be done by developers, but often also already by operations planner or tester teams. And then on the way to production, finally, you have an improvement for production, and that means operations, usually an operations planner, triggers the update in the prod environment. And deployment means in detail, triggered by Procman, we copy, for example, a job control member into a PDS on the mainframe. Or in case of IWS, we insert an application description into the IWSz-CP database. And that is triggered and performed by Procman. So it means in such a process, we have roles, we have user, and each user is assigned to a role, and therefore he has certain rights to start a process or to complete a certain process activity. Very important is, of course, 4I's principles. Yes, we need it wherever you need it. We can implement it on the way from the beginning to the final improvement. Okay, that is enough general Procman background information. Now let's go back in detail to our customer case, the German Federal Bank and its IT service provider. When we started with Procman, of course, you have to do some design work at the very beginning, because it must be clear, okay, who is involved in this ad hoc workload request, which user groups, what are they allowed to do, what shall they see on screen, what shall they be able to do within such a Procman process activity. That means we have to determine the roles, and we must differentiate between developer and operations planner. And sometimes an operations planner might also be a developer, and sometimes a developer might be allowed to update an IWS in a pre-production stage. So we have a mixture of many different kinds of settings here, and this must be defined at the very beginning. And of course, that is also important. Again, which functionalities do I provide the user in all these different Procman process activities? Because in case of an IWS ad hoc workload, there somebody must select an application, just maybe select an application description, or maybe an operation list must be modified. I must set workstations to dummy or vice versa. And this must be defined within Procman. Who is allowed to do that? Is the developer also allowed to do that modification? Or does he have the knowledge about to do that? Or is it work of the operations planner? So this must be clarified when you set up Procman at your site. And again, 4I's principles, it's getting more and more important that it should be guaranteed that not the requester is also that guy who does who adds the occurrence to the current plan. Okay, that is work which has to be done in advance at the very beginning. And now let's see what this federal bank realized with Procman. First of all, they provide different handover process types for their user, because there are different requirements. So the first one is called Procman process type 1. And this one, I hope you remember to one of the previous slides, a dev user wants to run a certain batch job. That's a very simple requirement. And for this request, we set up an handover process in Procman with 2 active process activities. So first of all, somebody must start such a request in Procman, and that is usually someone, it's a developer in this case. He starts a request, and then he can also select a job from a mainframe system and quasi copy it into the Procman handover process. Here in this case, it's also allowed for the developer to modify the job control temporarily in the Procman dialog. And but any change he's doing on the job control is later on checked and verified whether it fulfills all the compliance rules in at that federal bank. So he cannot transport corrupt job control to production by this ad hoc workload request. When this first activity is completed, and here again, just how it works, because the user selects only a job control, a PDS member, and then we generate a temp application description, and we locate this operation into a standard operation list, which fits to the standards at that federal bank. That means each application has to start with a dummy on operation, end with a dummy off operation, and the CPU operation is put in the middle of this operation list. So, but therefore I write it down again. Each modification of this temp JCL is verified and analyzed. Even if the user would try to submit a corrupt program or spy software or anything, we can verify it by the JCL checker, which is also used in the background here. So finally, if the developer completed his activity, then this process goes to the operations planner team, and they can have a look on it. They can verify it. They could also do some modification on the job or on the IWS fields, and then finally they start the IWS current plan update by Procman. That's what they do here in this second activity. If the second activity is completed, then the whole handover process is completed, and you can later on you can select and read reports for this process, and there you can find all the information: who requested something, what was the object, did the job control look like, what was changed by the operations planner, and all that stuff is listed and documented in the report, including a flow chart which shows it graphically. So then we have the second process type for ad hoc workload, and here is it a bit different. The developer wants to start as a set of application description. It's completely different than the process type before, that the user wanted selected a simple job, and here he wants to select certain application description. Usually these users have more experience with IWSz, and they know what is an application in that case, and yeah, they have more knowledge about it. And again, also here we have a handover process provided with 2 activities. So it starts very similar to the previous process. The developer starts a request. He selects some or his application description, which he wants to process. And these applications are not read directly from the IWSz on mainframe, but they are read from our Procman internal database, because here we have a synchronized version of the AD, and the developer can also, here in this case, modify the application if needed, but that's up to the developer. And again, here that is something very important. We have the security table, and managed by that, we can direct the developer which application he is able to select. He cannot select any application description from the database. It can be organized in a security table that he's allowed only to select certain application. And each change, each modification of the original data is again checked and tested and verified by by Procman. So if this request and this maintenance work is completed, then again, the handover process starts for the operations planner. He can verify it again. He can reject it in case he has some information are missing or something is wrong defined or does not fit to the rules on site. Then he can reject it, and the developer has to, do again some work until finally the operations planner is starting the IWS current plan update. Okay, so let's go ahead. The third type. Here we have, it's a bit different. We have something like from a business department, somebody simply wants to print a list. Usually these users do not have any knowledge about workload automation. They only know I need a list or I need a chart or anything which must be, which is a result of a job run. So, and for this kind of ad hoc workload requests, we designed with the federal bank a one activity process. So we would say a self-service process for these requests, because it's the setup is like this. Someone from the business department or also it might be a developer is starting this kind of process type. He selects an application, again, based on the security table. Usually it's only a very limited number of application with speaking names like print list for HR, print list for salaries or anything. And then he does not need to know anything about workload automation. He simply must know, okay, which application do I have to choose? And that's it. He has no modification options. He cannot modify the operation list or workstation or anything about in this request. He simply selects an application he is allowed to select. And therefore, finally, he can also, everything is of course checked again and verified. And in case it's more than one application, we also do resolve the external dependencies within the selected applications. But also, if we insert the application to the current plan, then we resolve the external dependencies. So, and because it's a very clear structure here and a very limited option which the user has, he can also start the adding of the occurrences to the current plan. So, and this is why we call it a self-service by one activity. And this one activity consists of these three different steps: request, selection, and then finally, if we press OK in the Procman dialog, the application will be added to the current plan. And this is something which is it's a great idea, because on the one hand side, the developer can trigger his request whenever he wants. And on the other hand, the operations planner team has less work with these kind of requests. And it can't be damaged anything, because only predefined application can be selected and added to the current plan. Okay, now I use the remaining time to give you some impression. How does it look like in a Procman browser-based dialog? And therefore, I put in here some screenshots, which give only a very, very rough and a very, very short overview about how does it really work. But just to get some impression here, we have something. Whenever you start a handover process in Procman, you will receive this first, we call it request form. It's a start form where the user enters some basic information, and all the things you see down here, yellow mark means the user has to insert something. And for this process type, it's for dev users who are experienced with IWSz, and therefore they can also type in here input arrival definitions. These fields are initialized by program, and the user could change it here. In case they are not the requester is not experienced with this kind of data, then he will not see it. Then it will be removed or disabled. However, it is needed. It is tailored absolutely to the needs of the user group here. The next thing is, depending on this already mentioned security table, the user gets a list of available applications, which you see here. These are only very few. And below here, what you see is that is screenshot from the security table. And there are many different ways how to set up the security table, but you can break it down to a row level, user level, process name level. So you have many options how to ensure that a user is only allowed to select certain application. Here in this case, he checked 3 applications, and these are processed to the next step. So one thing here is, if you compare it to IWSz database, then you can see that there are many more applications. Just to make clear that based on our security tab, he sees only a limited amount of application if you compare it to ZOS. Okay. Then finally, this is something the user gets on screen. Here we have his selected application, and they are, if you look, the application IDs are in sequence, but if you look at the description, then you see, okay, the first one should be the end of my workload, and so it's not important how it's listed here. Important is, of course, how are the dependencies set, external dependencies, and based on that, Procman will build up the sequence and also insert it into the current plan. In addition, again, here we have input arrival details. This can be in read-only. This might be editable. It strongly depends on how the customer wants to configure this kind of handover process. Also, options, manual setting of manual hold. If it's not needed, then it's simply removed here on screen, and nobody knows that it would be available. So, because it's a self-service, if the user press here, in this case, this button, red angled here, then he will start the insert action to the current plan on ZOS. And that is exactly what we want to reach by this process. Okay, so in this way, it would look like you see a screenshot from IWS on ZOS, and you would see, okay, the application are inserted and in a certain sequence. And if you want to be sure, okay, what happened? Is it really in that sequence I have defined in my request? Therefore, we have here a verification in such a flowchart. This is from Horizon Product Web Admin, and we have similar flowcharts also inside of Procman. But here you could verify exactly, okay, which application is, how is the sequence of application and operation in this request. So, and now I come already to the end. Oh yeah, my remaining time is not very much. So I want to give you a short summary. What did we achieve here at this customer case, at this federal bank? Yes, of course, we could replace their existing solution where the developer was not on site anymore. And we could provide them one comprehensive solution, one basis for all the maintenance work for job control and IWSz-CP objects. They use it also for the JCL and IWS maintenance, and now in addition also for all their ad hoc workload. And what I mentioned before, they have well-tailored process activities and workflows, which fits. Which fits to the needs to the different user groups. And we have a clear structure and segregation of duties. Who is allowed to do what from request until update of the current plan. And there's no need of manual interaction anymore for these adding in accordance to the current plan, because Procman is doing it. You can create reports where you find all the information, who did what, and what was the quality of job control and IWS application description. We have a variety of ad hoc workload processes. One, which I showed you before, is a self-service, but we also have process types where developer and operations planner are involved. So just to give you an imagination, we have 500 developer, and the ops team is about 40 guys, and they do manage all the ad hoc workload by Procman. And that means within a few years, I think it's must be about 3 years, they have more than 20,000 ad hoc workload requests managed by Procman. That's quite a lot. Imagine that had to be done the years before by manual work by the ops team, and so it's it's a great achievement here for dev and also for the operations team. Okay, and then again, everything you start and do with Procman fulfills all the compliance at your site regarding rules and standards which you have in your data center. So now my time is almost over. Any questions? That's it so far from my side. And if there are any questions, please ask them now.
You can put your questions in the chat, or you now have the ability to unmute yourself in order to ask a question. It would appear that we don't have any questions, just thank yous. So what I shall do is lead the applause. I see that people do know how to put this up there. I still haven't quite worked it out, but there you go. So, yeah, just a reminder then about filling in your feedback forms for the session. Please remember that the session is 3AZ. Also read the questions carefully. The one about the length of the session. The optimum answer is 5, not 9. So don't just go down going 9, 9, 9, 9, 9. Please do make sure that you have understood the question and the answer type correctly. Again, thank you for attending, and thank you, Jens, for the session. And also to show your appreciation, give generously. Get yourself a raffle ticket and show your appreciation by giving generously. Okay. Last couple of seconds to. Oh yes. If you want to become a member of GSC, if your company isn't a member and you can't convince them to be a member, then you can always take individual membership now. So there are a lot of advantages of being a GSE member. You can see some of them on the screen now. So I don't think I've got anything else to say, but thank you.
Thank you very much, Anna. I would recommend to stay in this session, because I think Peter Koll also shows a great presentation which follows directly next to this presentation. So thank you very much to all of you. Thank you very much, Anna.
Okay, I do have to end the session because that will close off the recording.
Okay.
But we will be starting again soon. Do please return.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.